Hello, this is our Voice Stories channel. Sweetheart, we can't afford to take both girls. Brooke really needs this trip. That's what my mother said during Sunday dinner, like it was a harmless statement. When they came back from Europe, they found the house transformed. Not broken into, not destroyed, but emptied. Every single thing I had ever paid for was gone. My name's Lila, and for 28 years, I was their personal ATM and emotional punching bag. I covered mortgages, cars, and guilt trips. In return, I got silence, judgment, and names like selfish, show-off, and ungrateful. That evening, I asked quietly, "What about me?" My father didn't even glance up. "Honey, you can take your own vacation anytime." So I did, just not the kind they expected. Receipts became evidence. Freedom was written in ink. They'd planned a trip for one of them, I planned my own kind of escape. Leaving wasn't an impulsive act. It began long before any flight was booked, in the way they treated me daily. Brooke was always the golden child, pretty, dramatic, the type everyone noticed. I was the quiet one, the reliable fallback. When her car died, I bought her a new one. When Dad's hours were cut, I paid the mortgage. When Mom wanted new furniture, I covered it, just this once. That once stretched into a decade. Since I was 20, I'd been sending $800 every month. They called it helping family. I called it survival because love in our house always came with a price tag. When I finally treated myself to a new car, Mom frowned. "Do you really need something that fancy?" When I moved into my own place, Dad sighed, "You're abandoning the family, Lila." I was the one holding everything together financially, but Brooke had dropped out of college to pursue her passion for content. She spent her days posting brunches, buying ring lights, and somehow, every time she overdrafted, it became my emergency. I told myself they'd eventually realize the difference between helping and being used. But the more I gave, the less I seemed to exist outside their needs. Last year, on my birthday, they let me pick the restaurant, then handed me the bill. "Your treat, right?" Dad joked. I laughed because crying wasn't allowed. Later that night, Mom called. "Sweetheart, Brooke's behind on rent again. You can help, can't you?" Her voice was soft, coated in guilt masquerading as affection. I said yes again. In college, I skipped spring break to work extra hours and sent the bonus to pay Mom's credit card bill. Brooke posted pool photos captioned, "Family First." She meant my wallet. Driving home one night, the city lights blurred through my windshield as I thought about every favor I'd mistaken for love. Every time I paid to belong, I realized belonging had always been for sale. I had been financing a family that never included me. After that dinner, something inside me went still. Not broken, just done. The kind of silence that comes when the truth finally gets too loud to ignore. For the first time in years, I opened my bank statements and studied them like a detective reopening an old case. 10 years of helping. 10 years of watching my savings vanish, while their lifestyle flourished on my dime. The numbers didn't lie. $96,000 in mortgage payments. $47,000 in household expenses. Refrigerators, washers, dryers, furniture, Brooke's car. All of it in that house. My money, their comfort. I thought about all the thank yous that never came. The times they'd said, "You're lucky you have a good job." As if my career were a privilege instead of the reason they lived without worry. That weekend, I printed every receipt, every text where they promised repayment. I made color-coded folders, proof that my generosity wasn't a myth. Then I met with a lawyer. She flipped through the pages, eyebrows raised. "Most people don't keep records like this." "I guess I learned to document everything when love came with conditions," I replied. She gave me a sad smile. "Then you already know your worth." She explained that legally, ownership stays with whoever paid unless it's transferred in writing. Every big-ticket item I'd bought still belonged to me. That single sentence filled my lungs like oxygen after years of drowning. I walked out of her office lighter, not happy yet, but certain. For years, I'd thought leaving meant betrayal. Now I saw that staying had been the real betrayal of myself. I started looking for apartments in Denver, a city I'd always loved but never dared to claim. The mountains, the clean air. It all felt like a life I might finally deserve. At night, I'd sit by the window, watching the skyline flicker while my laptop glowed with listings. Each tab was a small act of rebellion. I made a folder titled My Life. For once, I wasn't saving documents as evidence. I was saving plans for freedom. At work, I requested remote status. My manager didn't hesitate. "You've earned it, Lila." Those words felt warmer than anything my parents had said in years. I began pausing before answering family messages, hesitating before saying yes. Each pause was a reclamation. One small piece of myself returned. For the first time, I imagined a life where both my money and my peace belonged solely to me. So when their flight confirmation for Europe appeared in our family chat, I smiled. They'd planned their dream vacation and I planned mine. The day they boarded that plane, I stopped being their backup plan. They left early Tuesday morning, 3 suitcases, an oversized tote, and Mom's promise to FaceTime from Paris. She kissed my cheek like she was doing me a favor. "Keep the house plants alive, honey." Brooke smirked from the back seat. "Don't miss us too much." Their laughter faded down the street. I stood in the driveway, inhaling air that finally felt like mine. By 9 a.m., I made my first call. "Hi, this is Lila Reeves. I'd like to schedule a pickup for tomorrow." The moving company specialized in delicate transitions. Families dividing assets, quiet separations, stories that didn't need retelling. Carmen, the coordinator, didn't press for reasons. She just said gently, "We'll take care of everything carefully." That night, I walked through the house for what I knew would be the final time. Every corner hummed with memories I no longer wanted to carry. The refrigerator I'd bought whispered in the kitchen. The washer spun softly in the garage. The couch where I once cried while Brooke laughed. It all bore my fingerprints except love. I took photos for documentation. Each click was a quiet farewell. It wasn't revenge. It was reconciliation. Wednesday morning, the trucks rolled up. 2 men in uniforms, professional, polite, efficient. I handed them a folder, receipts, inventory lists, serial numbers. They didn't need explanations. They'd seen the story before. The refrigerator went first, followed by the furniture, washer, television, Brooke's vanity. Piece by piece, the illusion of family comfort was dismantled. By late afternoon, the house looked hollow, like a stage stripped bare after the show ends. I left one thing behind, the old floral couch Mom had always hated. It felt symbolic, leaving them surrounded by the past they'd built without me. Before locking the door, I placed an envelope on the counter. Inside were receipts, copies of every statement, and a letter. "Mom, Dad, Brooke, everything I removed was paid for by me. For a decade, I funded your lives while being called selfish. I'm done being useful only when it suits you. Consider this repayment for every favor that became obligation. The house you're coming back to is the one you built without me." I slid the key through the mail slot. The metallic clink sounded final, like closing a chapter I'd reread too many times. Driving away, my rearview mirror reflected only sky. No guilt, no fear, just calm. That night, I slept deeper than I had in years. My phone lit up with missed calls I didn't answer. They were somewhere over the Atlantic, unaware that their return ticket was to an empty home. By the time their plane landed, I'd already crossed the state line and crossed out the role they'd written for me. The sunrise the next morning felt different. No weight on my chest, no demands in my inbox. For the first time, silence wasn't absence, it was peace. They landed on a Sunday night. My phone buzzed before I'd even finished unpacking. Mom, then Dad, then Brooke. One text summed it up. "What have you done?" I didn't reply. Instead, I poured coffee and sat by the window. Peace was louder than their panic. By noon, my inbox overflowed. Mom's message came first, paragraphs about betrayal and disrespect. She called me cruel. Dad's was colder. "This is theft, Lila. You can't just take what you gave." Brooke sent a voice note, a full minute of sobbing. "How could you ruin my life like this?" she cried. I almost laughed. Ruin her life? I'd simply stopped financing it. That evening, my lawyer called. "They've filed a police report," he said. "Claimed you stole their property." I sighed. "Let me guess. No receipts, no proof?" He chuckled. "None. I already sent documentation. The officer said they don't have a case." For once, justice wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, deliberate. Like me. The next morning, I woke to an email from Dad. The last line read, "You'll regret this when you're alone." I replied with one sentence. "I've never been less alone in my life." Days passed. The messages kept coming: threats, guilt trips, rewrites of history. They said I'd lost touch with family values. But each accusation sounded weaker than the last. Truth has a calmness that lies can't imitate. 2 days later, Brooke called from an unknown number. I answered. "Lila, please. We came home to nothing." "I left what was yours," I said evenly, "and took what was mine." Her voice trembled. "I can't work without my setup." "Then build it yourself," I said, "like I built mine." "Mom's been crying for days. Can't you be reasonable?" "Reasonable was 10 years," I told her. "This is fairness." Silence stretched on the line. Then a quiet sniff. "Do you hate me?" "I don't," I said softly. "I just stopped funding you." I informed building security to block their names. Family wasn't allowed past the lobby. Boundaries weren't cruelty. They were instructions on how to love me properly. A week later, a certified letter arrived. A lawsuit threat. My lawyer resolved it with 3 sentences. Every item was purchased and documented by my client. Further contact will be considered harassment. After that, true silence followed. Not absence, freedom. For years, they'd controlled me through obligation, convincing me love had to be earned through sacrifice. Now, every unanswered call and every dollar I kept was a line drawn in permanent ink. I was no longer their provider, their emotional vault, or their financial safety net. I was Lila, whole, solvent, unapologetic. For the first time, they were the ones left empty-handed. Months passed. The quiet stayed. Felt earned, not empty. At first, I kept checking my phone, waiting for another guilt-soaked message. But none came. In that stillness, I finally heard my own voice again. Mornings no longer began with dread. They began with mountain light streaming through my Denver window, coffee brewed for one, peace that didn't feel expensive anymore. I learned freedom doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just paying your own bills and knowing no one else owns your joy. I still think of them sometimes, not with anger, just distance. I hope they're okay. But I've stopped mistaking their comfort for my responsibility. I once believed leaving meant losing everything. Now I know it meant finding myself. I'm learning to buy things without guilt, to say no without explaining, to rest without permission. Denver feels like a second life. I hike on weekends, work with people who respect my boundaries, and love a man who doesn't flinch when I need space. My life isn't perfect, but it's finally mine. Paid for in full, in cash and clarity. If you've ever been called selfish for choosing yourself, hear me, you're not selfish. You're surviving. You're allowed to stop pouring into people who only take. Have you faced something like this? Tell me in the comments. And if you have, know this, you're not alone. Because peace isn't passive. It's the loudest kind of strength. And sometimes the quietest revenge is finally living. Goodbye.